Hello, everyone. So, I wanted to do a video covering the Super Tuesday results, of course. I wanted to talk about South Carolina first, though. That had happened last Saturday, and it was Biden's first win ever in his career in running for president three times now. I mean, I think this is the third. I don't think it's the fourth time. Yeah, it was two other times. And yeah, it's the first primary he's ever won in his life, and everyone's freaking out. Um, so he got a lot of the older African American vote, and even though Bernie won over the young people, when you look at the demographics, he still won those groups over, but it was not enough to put him over the top. And in fact, Biden came away with a pretty sizable victory. He was actually, as a result of South Carolina, that put him in the lead in terms of the popular vote, and I guess probably the delegate count too. Um, I'd have to go and check, but I think he is in the lead now, Biden. Um, so Bernie was a clear second, though, and this is going to be a trend. No one else is hardly viable. We'll get to Super Tuesday because, like, you know, occasionally you'll have someone grabs a few delegates here, Warren or Bloomberg or whatever. Bloomberg just dropped out today, so you know, do with that what you may. I mean, like, so there's been a consolidated effort to stop Bernie after the South Carolina race. Like immediately after, Buttigieg drops out, Klobuchar drops out, and endorse Biden ahead of Super Tuesday, and this was to prevent splitting the centrist vote. Um, you know, People have made the comparison, like if you look at the GOP primary in 2016, they were trying very, very hard to take it from Trump. They had their own little clown show up there. They had Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz go down the list, and these people didn't drop out soon enough. And basically, Trump was able to come away with this. It's like I don't know if some of them had dropped out sooner. It's like I don't know who else could have done it. I mean, Ted Cruz was second, but he was not their preferred choice. The establishment's preferred choice, probably more like Marco Rubio or Jeb Bush. But so point being, it's much more coordinated with the Democrats, and you'd have to be the most naive person in the world to not think that there's some backroom talk. I don't know if it was necessarily a deal, like Buttigieg gets an administration position in Biden's potential presidency, which will never happen. Something like that. Either that, or they get some kind of assurance that they'll have a decent job lined up. It's like because like Biden has connections. So it's like it's not necessarily crazy to think that because like Yang is freaking on CNN now, so it's like all these candidates are going to have talking heads positions on mainstream media after they're dropping out. But the point being is that there was clearly people talking behind closed doors, and this is a coordinated effort, I think. Um, I mean, it's kind of amazing to me that it's Biden. Like I began to kind of slowly see that Biden was not something to scoff at. As the race was getting to be closer to the actual primary dates. Biden was starting to prove that he wasn't just basically the Jeb Bush of the Democratic primary, which is what basically I thought he would be. I thought he was gonna, you know, just fizzle out. But I was wrong about that. And really, it's more Elizabeth Warren that's gonna fizzle out, and people are in denial about that. We'll get to that, but so let's go over the results of Super Tuesday. So this is just on Google here. I'm gonna quick go through this, give you the most important information, I suppose. Um, so Alabama, Joe Biden won. There's 52 delegates available. Joe Biden gets 40, Bernie gets 7, Bloomberg gets 1. Um, Biden is at 63.2%, Bernie is 16.6%, Bloomberg 11.7%. I'd have to look into the rules of the primaries because I think for caucuses it's like that 15% threshold. So it's like if you don't reach that, then you just don't get anything. You don't get any delegates. And Warren is in fourth place here, 5.7, and she doesn't have any delegates. So, you know. But anyways, Arkansas, Joe Biden won, 31 delegates available. Biden has 17, Bernie has 9, Bloomberg 5. Now, yeah, the math does add up now because I know that in terms of the delegates, like, they have to be allocated more at the convention from what I understand. Like, these may not be complete delegate counts. But regardless, this is what it says. So with Arkansas, yeah, like 40.5% for Biden, 22.4% for Sanders, 16.7% for Bloomberg, and 10% for Warren, and she's not viable here either. California, big deal for Bernie. I mean, this is the biggest state in the country. 415 delegates available. Bernie has 155, 33.6% of the vote, and that's coming out to around 1 million people voted for him. Joe Biden has 93 delegates and 24.9% of the vote. Bloomberg, 14 delegates, 14.3% of the vote. Warren, 9 delegates, 12% of the vote. And that's 90% reporting right now. So I assume, like, if it's not 100%, then it probably is an incomplete count. Excuse me. Colorado, Bernie won. Delegates for Bernie are 20 and 36.1% of the vote. Joe Biden has 9 delegates, 23.6% of the vote. Bloomberg has 9 delegates, 20.5% of the vote, and Warren has 1 delegate in Colorado with 17.3% of the vote. Maine, Joe Biden won and has 11 delegates. This was a very close race. Maine, I mean, it was neck and neck basically the whole time. It's still at 98% reporting. And yeah, so Biden, I'm sorry, Joe Biden, 11 delegates, Bernie 9, Warren 4. Biden had 34.1% of the vote. Bernie had 32.9%, and Warren had 15.7% of the vote. Massachusetts, this was a big shocker to me. I mean, people would have expected Warren to win that because that's her home state, but she got, obliterated by Biden and Bernie in this. So this is 91 delegates available, 36 for Biden, 33.6% of the vote, 29 delegates for Bernie, 26.7% of the vote. Warren has 23 delegates and 21.4% of the vote. Minnesota. Now, I would have thought that Bernie would win this too. It's considered kind of a Rust Belt state. Klobuchar dropped out, like a day before Super Tuesday, and a lot of people had thought, it's like she could stay in the race to steal votes from Bernie. I guess apparently didn't need doing. But yeah, to say the least, like I expected a Bernie victory, and maybe not by a lot, but I figured he would have won Minnesota. I thought he was going to win Massachusetts, Minnesota, and Virginia, and Texas, and I was wrong about all 4 of those. So with Minnesota, 38 delegates, 38.6% of the vote for Biden, 26 delegates for Sanders, 29.9% of the vote. Warren has 10 delegates, 15.4% of the vote. North Carolina, 65 delegates for Biden, 43% of the vote. 35 delegates for Bernie, 24.1% of the vote. And so that kind of shows the demographics are similar between North Carolina and South Carolina, of course. So that kind of does show that Biden is getting the older black voters, I think. It's true when you look at the numbers. Like, that's just what's happening. Warren has 2 delegates, 10.5% of the vote. And Bloomberg actually got more votes than Bernie. More votes than Warren. Look at this. North Carolina, Bloomberg has 1 delegate, but Warren had 10.5% of the vote, and Bloomberg had 13%. It's seeing things like that. It's like, I don't care for Warren and Bloomberg, of course, but when I see like discrepancies like that, and it's like it's obviously not in line with democratic values. If like someone is ahead of you in the delegate count, but they didn't get as much votes as you, so just very, I don't know, just very wonky, and people who would try and defend the DNC and like the process for what's about to unfold, like I'll get to Warren in a second. So okay, Oklahoma. Joe Biden won that. 37 delegates available. 21 delegates for Biden, 38.7% of the vote. Bernie, 13 delegates, 25.4% of the vote. Bloomberg, Bloomberg, 3 delegates, 13.9% of the vote. Tennessee. Joe Biden won and got 29 delegates, 41.7% of the vote. Bernie got 15 delegates, 25% of the vote. Bloomberg got 8 delegates, 15.5% of the vote. And Warren has 1 delegate in Tennessee with 10.4% of the vote. In Texas, this is, the second biggest race that we had, and Joe Biden won. I would say fairly close. I mean, it's less than 5%. In terms of the vote numbers, it seems like pretty big, like almost like 100,000 more people voted for Biden. A lot of people thought Bernie would win because there's a big Latino population in Texas, and as well as in California, which is largely why he won California. But I can tell you right now, it's like they'll tout this for Biden. I mean, like it's as if like Biden can do no wrong now. But if Bernie had won Texas, I guarantee they would be saying like, "Oh, it doesn't matter because Texas is not going to go blue in a general election." But I think it's total double standard because they'll try and use Biden winning to be like, "Oh, well, now we can totally turn Texas blue." I guarantee, like they're going to try and make Biden look super electable, and I think you must be the craziest person in the world to think that Biden will beat Trump. I mean, just there's so much I could say. All of the cognitive issues with him, like not being able to speak coherently for like more than 10 seconds. The crazy things he said to his supporters recently were, I mean, a bunch of things. He called a woman a lying dog-faced pony soldier, and I still haven't figured out what that meant. So, all these things. And that's not even getting into his record, too. So, anyway, so Texas, 81 delegates for Biden, 34.5% of the vote. Sanders, 72 delegates. So you can see it's pretty close. 30% for Bernie. Bloomberg, 5 delegates, 14.4% of the vote. Warren has 1 delegate in Texas with 11.4% of the vote. Now we're on to Utah, and Bernie won there. 29 delegates available. This is only 74% reporting, so this is clearly not a complete delegate count. But Bernie, 9 delegates, 34.6% of the vote. Bloomberg in second, 2 delegates, 16.7% of the vote. Biden, 1 delegate, 17.4% of the vote. And Warren is fourth with no delegates. Oh my goodness. Bernie won Vermont very overwhelmingly. No surprise there. He has 11 delegates, 50.8% of the vote. Joe Biden has 5 delegates, 22% of the vote. Warren only has 12.6 and has no delegates. And then Virginia, this was a big kind of upset. I mean, not ultimately that surprising because Virginia has a very wealthy population, but it's like if Bernie had won Virginia, it would have been a huge step for him because it would have showed that like he can get a base of voters that's not just working class people. He can get more wealthy people, and I mean in terms of the ideological breakdown, we saw in Nevada that Bernie got not just liberal Democrats, but moderate and self-described conservative Democrats. He won the majority of all those groups. So I don't think necessarily that trend is going to continue. And honestly, I think a lot of people probably they're fearful of the socialism aspect of Bernie. It could be greed too. They don't want to pay more in taxes. So I think that's definitely going to be a challenge for Bernie. But ultimately, he has to just get a huge, massive voter turnout. He has to get a lot of young people out there to vote, and if he can do that, then he will win. Because the older people do come out to vote more. That is true. So we have to offset that basically, and show in our numbers that we are really backing him. But okay, so Virginia, 99 delegates available, 66 for Biden, 53.2% of the vote, 31 delegates for Bernie, 23.1% of the vote, and Warren has 2 delegates, 10.7% of the vote. Okay. So overall, just to summarize here, it wasn't necessarily a bad night for Bernie because he came away with some big wins, and I mean California is a big deal. It's a lot of delegates. So, it just wasn't the crushing victory that we were hoping for Bernie, and that should, it's going to hopefully, I think, get people, light a fire under their ass and get more involved. I've been phone banking. I won a canvas in Pennsylvania, and I've been donating to Bernie, throughout the months. So we all have to do everything we can to try and get him over the finish line. My whole thing is like I feel like the primary is his biggest hurdle, Bernie, and not to say that it would be a given that he would beat Trump. I don't think we should give into that anymore. We shouldn't take anything for granted. You have to treat it like a serious race. Like just because I like Bernie a lot and I think that he's very smart strategically, so on and so forth. Yeah, it's like I don't want to. I don't want to get lazy and overconfident. Like, and not to say that I was necessarily overconfident with Hillary, but because I didn't like Hillary, I thought she was not a good choice to go up against Trump. But it's like even in that scenario, it should have been more obvious to me. It's like she was not invigorating enough in excitement, and yeah, she won the popular vote. Good for you. That's not how we. It's not how we decide our elections. I don't like the electoral college. I think we should get rid of it, or you don't even have to get rid of it. You could just make it like actually proportional, like Maine and Nebraska do, and not winner take all. I guess probably the issue with that is it'd be hard for someone to reach 270. But regardless, you don't. I'm in favor of democracy, like more direct democracy. So, but the point being with Hillary is like, yeah, like she was not an exciting candidate, and everyone was just kind of comfortable and thought like, oh yeah, she's got this. And even though I like Bernie a lot, I don't want to fall into that trap again. So let's go to Warren finally. It's just pissed me off too much at this point. I saw there was a article, I think from The Hill, that Warren is reassessing her campaign now, which means she might drop out. I don't know, but she should. Let's get that out of the way. It makes no sense. Okay, like she hasn't won a race at this point now. Like now that we have had Super Tuesday now, and she hasn't won a single race thus far. Like, how do you think that you are viable in any way? And if your plan really is to go all the way to the convention and basically, force a contested convention, like get onto the second ballot, and you're a unity candidate, so to speak, like, how do you think that that's gonna go? Like, it's unbelievable that I've seen people all like really supporting Warren, and it's like enough is enough now. You're playing Fantasyland here. There's no viable path for her. She would have to probably like win every race going forward, and it's just not going to happen. So I think people should get their head out of their asses, honestly, and Warren should drop out and endorse Bernie because like that's who she's most ideologically aligned with. But I don't know that she will endorse Bernie, to be honest. I would hope she does. It would like make little to no sense for her to endorse Biden. But if this trend is going to continue, and it's really just a stop Sanders movement, like this is beyond ridiculous and so transparent. That's what really gets me, is like they're just openly trying to kneecap the most popular politician in the country. Um, and people on my freaking Facebook are saying openly like they're okay with Warren diluting Bernie's vote because Biden is gonna win. Like, are you insane? Like, I just can't anymore. Like, okay, but let's go to what Warren actually said. There's two things. I don't. I think it may have been after South Carolina. I'm not positive, but she made comments about Bernie saying that he hasn't gotten anything done in like 30 years, and basically like what she was saying is like he's got a lot of these ideas, like he went up against the political establishment and failed. And I mean, it's like, how could I blame Bernie, one person, for not succeeding at like changing the corruption and rot in the system that has been like pervasive for decades? Like, that's his, or like he's a bad politician for not like succeeding at everything he's tried. Like, I don't think. I think Warren is smarter than this. I'd like to think so. So I think that this is a strategy for her, and it makes no sense to me, even saying that, because it's like you're gonna alienate Bernie supporters, and you think that that's gonna help you, like. But yeah, I mean, Bernie started handing out these things for canvassers, like this big little pamphlet that shows his achievements, and votes. Like if he voted against the Iraq War or something, like it's not anything to scoff at, especially considering like Bernie and a few other ones like Barbara Lee. Like there's a few politicians that have been on the right side of things. Like when it comes to imperialism, like that was not popular back then, and when the Iraq War was starting, and Biden just got confronted by an Iraq War vet, so it's gonna go both ways. I feel like, honestly, it's like the Biden, I mean, the centrist camp, and now they're all endorsing Biden. They want to tear down Bernie. But people are going to start tearing down Biden, hardcore, especially since like he seems like the only real viable candidate at this point. And there's a lot to attack with Biden. It's like I don't see how could people actually think that this will work, but Biden versus Trump. But I digress. So the other thing with Warren is the superdelegate smear. She was asked a question in a town hall. About all the candidates were asked on stage, like, would you agree with the person who wins the plurality of votes? If you don't reach a majority of votes, the person with the most votes, should they be the nominee or do you let the DNC process take place? And everyone except Bernie said like democracy is important. Um, so, but in the town hall, someone asked her, to basically defend that decision, to defend that position, and she was like, well, that was what Bernie said in like 2016, and that's not what he said. If you look at the video, he was saying he was not trying to convince superdelegates to vote for him over Hillary and essentially overriding the will of the people. Like, he could have done that if he wanted to. It probably wouldn't have worked because superdelegates don't like him, but he could have been out there trying to convince superdelegates to vote for him, but he wasn't doing that. He was simply saying that there's situations like in West Virginia, like he won like all of the counties there, and I mean, like Hillary reached around 35%, so she got some pledged delegates too. But point being, like, because of the unpledged delegates, it actually put her one over Bernie. So the point being is, like, it's not as if Bernie lost because of superdelegates. So people get that often confused. He was simply trying to point out that they're inherently undemocratic, and that should be the most obvious thing in the world. It's like they're literally designed to not, that they can vote however they want and not have to listen to the will of the people. So I don't know what else you would call that other than undemocratic. So okay, just final thing, like Warren, she has to drop out and endorse Bernie, because this is she has her own clown show amidst the clown show primary of the Democratic Party, because there's just no chance. She I don't even know if she's gotten second in a race, to be honest with you. I'd have to go back now, but she's third behind, Bernie and Biden. But when you look, it's like it's so massively like Bernie and Biden are way ahead of her. And this is a lot of the, like, there's still a lot more to go, but by the end of March, you will have had like 2/3 of the delegates allocated. So to think that she's going to have some massive surge that would completely go against the polls. I mean, like, not even because people will say, like, oh, 2016, like, the polls were wrong. That's not really true anyways. But you can't have a situation where, like, someone just surges, like, 30 points or something overnight, and all of a sudden they're a front runner after not winning any races. I mean, like, this has only happened, like, maybe once or something. Like, I read, like, Bill Clinton lost the first 11 races, but we were already past 11 races now. So, oh my goodness. Yeah, Warren just needs to drop out, and I'm not taking any more BS from people that want to rationalize and say, like, oh yeah, she stepped on the Bloomberg grenade. He freaking dropped out today. I mean, he was he's a billionaire. He could have stayed in it if he wanted to. He just didn't want. He doesn't want to take votes away from Biden. And honestly, like, I just freaking hope Warren. I mean, she has to drop out. I really don't see what other options she has. Like, how much longer can she sustain this freaking losing candidacy? I just hope that when she does drop out, she'll endorse Bernie and not Biden, because that's going to be a very big deal. Buttigieg should have endorsed Bernie, but obviously people are acting more in their self-interest than for the betterment of the working class and the whole country in general, honestly, for the health of the economy, so that we don't constantly have to rely on trickle-down economics and neoliberalism anymore. Like, let's get some real change enacted for once.